Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hypertext 2021. This has been a really fantastic conference to organize this year. We've had a wonderful group of people come together to make this happen. This is the 32nd iteration of this conference. So I'd like to just give you a very brief introduction. So I am the General Chair. My name is Owen Conlon. I'm based in Trinity College, Dublin. And Ilko Herder, who will introduce himself a little bit later, is our Programme Chair. So this conference has been really fantastic to put together. We have a really exciting set of papers. I'd like to talk a little bit about the hosting, some of the organizational side of things initially, and I'll let Ilko then focus on the program itself. So from an organization perspective, I'm, as I mentioned, part of Trinity College Dublin, which is a university that's part of this large research centre here in Ireland called ADAPT. And ADAPT very much focuses on the complete life cycle of digital content, its creation, interaction, and engagement, which of course very much has humans at the centre there. So our tagline, which you can see on the right-hand side, is engaging content, engaging people. So it's deliberately a little bit ambiguous. And we do some fantastic research. The centre's been going for 10 years. It's heavily supported by the Irish government, but also thankfully by Irish industry and European research supports. So the centre has about 350 people in it. It's led by Trinity College, but it involves University College Dublin, Dublin City University, University of Galway, Technological University Dublin, Maynooth University, Cork Institute of Technology, Athlone Institute of Technology, and I may have forgotten somebody. And it's very collaborative, and I have to say it's wonderful to see so many people come together to produce research that very much aligns with the hypertext visions and messages that come out of this community. We're very interested in digital media, multimodality, of course, from my perspective, personalization, user modeling, and that multiple different narratives and paths that you see through all sorts of media streams and the complexities that come with that. So we're very happy to host you. Here's normally as part of a conference where I would tell you all about the wonderful city that Dublin is, the wonderful country that Ireland is. But you know what, if you haven't been to Ireland or Dublin, make it a point to come at some stage when this pandemic has passed. And come and see Trinity, come and see me, and you'll be very welcome. So these are the beautiful people who helped do the main organization. The guy on the left is not the most beautiful lot, but that's me. Ilko, Programme Chair, who I've mentioned, and then great support from Annalena, Nicole, and Brendan to help make all the organizational elements happen. Because a conference of this scale doesn't just happen magically, and I'm very much indebted to all of the supports that they have given. But they are a few amongst many names, and were to read all of these names out, we would be here all day. Ilko will go into some of the details around the program, but I'd like to thank some people who aren't mentioned here. That the workshop chairs were really fantastic, running 3 excellent workshops yesterday, and all of the work that went into that. And then people who kind of you don't necessarily see behind the scenes. Vint was commenting on how nice our logo is this year. So, you know, we have a lot of people who give that kind of logistical support. So Jenny Walsh was the designer for that beautiful logo. But with people, you know, in the background looking at promoting the conference and doing a whole range of other activities. And so I'm very much thankful to all of them. So we have 2 really exciting keynotes. The first one will happen at 12 o'clock Irish time today. So that's in just less than an hour. And that's looking at a really tragic element of Irish history and how digital technology can help reconstruct something that was lost. So this is looking at archiving information and trying to reconstruct information that has been lost when a physical archive is burnt to the ground. And I couldn't say any more. Wait for that keynote. It's really, really exciting to see how history and technology come together to make something that I think is unique, but also is something that culturally very important for our country. Tomorrow we have an equally exciting keynote, which again speaks to the theme of this year's conference, which has a very strong element of multimodality. So looking at where do we have this intersection between various different modal representations of content, what we've learned through hypertext, which has become increasingly multimodal, and to start thinking about kind of theoretical and empirical considerations. So John and Tuomo will be talking to us about that tomorrow. So I'm not going to talk too much about the theme of the conference this year. Ilko is going to hint at it in his slides. Instead, I get to do the boring things. So talk a little bit about the housekeeping. So yes, we're running an online conference this year. One of the early decisions we made was that we didn't want to try and force a social event. I think many of us are zoomed out. It's now part of our vernacular, this phrase. So we will have this free-for-all social event. So the social rooms will be available. You will have noted as you came into this breakout room that there were other chat rooms. So, at 7 o'clock Irish time tomorrow, there's this opportunity if you want to kind of arrange, if you talk to somebody, say, hey, you're pretty cool, I'd love to have a chat. The breakout rooms are always there. You can always go and have a chat anytime you want, or there's a kind of a dedicated time to go and chat. But we're not going to force a social, because I think at this stage, we've all been involved in enough online forced socials. A small bit about Zoom etiquette. Again, we're all fairly familiar. Please set your Zoom name to be your name that you registered under. You can either add questions into the chat function as talks are happening, and the session chair will try and read those questions out. You can use the raise hand button, and the question chair or the session chair will try and come to you. Try to remain muted unless you're asked directly to speak. We have Discord available. So the access URL, which you can see on screen, that'll give you a link to our Discord, link to the program, the proceedings, and all sorts of different things. Go over to Discord. It's a great way of engaging and discussing with other folks. So go use that. And if everything falls apart and you have to rely on some old school technology to get some help, look, the Hypertext 2021 email is there. So again, if you need any help, just reach out to us at hypertext ht2021@adaptcenter.ie. So one more slide for me, and that's just to thank our sponsors. So I mentioned Trinity and Adapt already. ACM have been wonderful supporters of us, helping us to put together a really compelling set of proceedings. SIGWeb are also wonderful supporters, and you'll see that there's a SIGWeb town hall as part of the program for you to engage and understand more about what's going on in SIGWeb. And they've been really great at supporting both student participation in the conference this year and also underrepresented global areas in the conference this year. So very thankful to them. So that's my lightning introduction, and I'm going to hand over to Ilko, who'll give a little bit of an intro on the program itself. So Ilko, word is over to you.
Yes, thanks. I'll take over the screen. In the meantime, I will ask Owen to put people who join in the session breakout room. I've been doing this until now. Having said that, moving windows is always hard. You probably can see my screen right now. So I can now start presenting. Here we go. Have to move some other things away. So I'm going to talk a bit about the papers and the program of this conference with a beautiful logo. As you might have seen, the theme of this year's conference is Hypertext in a Multimodal World. We have seen over the past 2 decades that the hypertext paradigm has completely transformed the way that we store and transfer knowledge and how we think about information and how we access it. The web really has changed a lot of things, with a couple of developments in the past decades where we have learned how to access the web and hypertext via multiple devices. We have our phones, smartwatches, we have laptops, and the information that we look for, the things that we do, has become even more transactional and more visual, with video taking over traditional text-based web pages. And we do not only access information, but we really use interactive hypertext and news feeds and videos for getting things done, for planning a trip, managing our finances, interacting with colleagues as we are doing right now, but also with friends and family. We are productive, we consume news, we communicate, and we are creative. And all the things are part of our hypertext worlds. So there are also some challenges associated with it and opportunities that still can be extended, and that is what this conference is about. So this year we identified 5 topics and associated tracks that are represented by wonderful track chairs, for which we asked for submissions. So the first track, led by Dennis Helig from the TU Graz, is Adaptive Web and Recommender Systems. Then we have Luca, who led the social web track. Luca is associated with ITU Copenhagen. Semantic web and natural language processing is represented by Marika van Erp from the Royal Netherlands Academy of Science. The web also involves, and hypertext involves, human-computer interaction. We search for information, retrieve information, and that is what Jacek Kwitzka is has been representing. And finally, hypertext can also be used for creativity, for digital humanities, games, and culture. And this is what was represented by Anastasia Salter. So the 5 tracks attracted quite some submissions, with most submissions to the social web track, but also digital humanities, human information interaction, search and retrieval, semantic web, and adaptive web all attracted quite a good number of submissions, which have been reviewed by our extensive program committee, which led to some acceptance rates. As you can see, the adaptive web track got least submissions, but also was very selective. Social web had a lot of submissions, was also able to accept quite a bit of submissions. Apart from the main track, we also had a late-breaking results track, which is led by Erik Eliade from the Leibniz University and LTS Research Center in Hanover, Germany. And if I'm not mistaken, Erik still occupies the office that I used to occupy until 4 years ago. And we have a doctoral consortium led by Ton Borgers and Nicole Basaraba. So thanks to all the organizers, to the track chairs for the wonderful work that you did. We had the following acceptance rates. So we received 53 full papers, we were able to accept 19, 27 short papers accepted 9. We had 2 blue sky papers. Blue sky papers basically identify challenges that the hypertext field faces, and we were able to accept both of them. We have 2 late breaking results and 1 doctoral consortium that will be presented in a dedicated session together with the late breaking results. Yesterday, we had 3 workshops: the International Workshop on Narrative and Hypertexts, organized by Charlie and David. We have the Human Workshop, organized by Klaus and Jessica, and the Oasis Workshop on Open Challenges in Online Social Networks, organized by Barbara, Laura, and Andrea. And the workshops have been put together by Kevin Coydell from Trinity College Dublin. Here are some more stats on the submissions that we received per country. So most of the submissions were sent from the United Kingdom, followed by the United States. We have quite a number of submissions from India, so we had to balance a bit with the time zones here. Germany, Ireland, Australia, some of the usual suspects, and a long tail of other countries. So this resulted in the conference program for today, tomorrow, and the after tomorrow, where today, after the welcome, we will have our keynotes starting at noon Irish time. So all the times are Irish UK summertime. We have sessions today on hate speech, emotions, controversies, language, and identity. So all kind of more sociological problems associated with hypertexts. Tomorrow, we will talk about deception and attacks, digital humanities, diversity and equality, search and interaction. Tomorrow, as today, there will also be a keynote. Owen already announced them. At 5:30, there will be a SIGWeb town hall. So the Hypertext conference is supported by the ACM SIGWeb Special Interest Group, and Peter Brusilowski will tell a bit about that tomorrow. And at the end of the day, there is room for being social. As Owen said, we don't have a social program, but you're free to join any of the chat rooms, any of the breakout rooms on Discord, to chat, do whatever you want, and perhaps something spontaneous will pop up. I guess we're creative enough for that. The final sessions will be then the after tomorrow, followed by a closing session and the usual awards. That's it from my side. The program can be accessed via this link. There's also a link to the proceedings from there. So enjoy the conference. Now back to Owen.
Thank you, Ilko. I nearly spoke without unmuting, the cardinal sin of Zoom meetings. So I will invite Vint and Frode to make a special announcement. In the build up to this conference, we were approached with, I think, a very exciting initiative. And rather than spoil it, I will hand the word straight over to them.
Well, thank you so much, Owen, and good day, everyone. We're always looking for a term that works for all the time zones that are participating, and I guess maybe hello might work as well. First of all, there's nothing more appropriate than having the Hypertext conference centered in Ireland. After all, that's where the Blarney Stone is. And if there's anything about hypertext, it's about the amazing Blarney that surrounds it. What's exciting to me, however, is that text is now surrounded by software, and it is making text different than it always was before. The static thing that it once was has become far more dynamic. And it's partly because of the presence of all that software. Think of a browser that's consuming HTML and then doing things with it, not just rendering it, but allowing you to interact with it. This idea of interacting with text is something which is goes to the core of what Frode Hegland has been doing. I think of him as a kind of a protege of the late Douglas Engelbart, digging into improved tools for allowing people to interact with text and to do things with it that otherwise might not be possible. He's developed three different elements, tools that allow us to experience this kind of interaction. One is called an author program, which allows you to compose text, but a reader program, which has many of the features of the author program to allow you to manipulate the presentation of text and to find things and to do citations in a thorough way. And finally, and perhaps most important, is something called visual meta, which allows you to extend the functionality of the PDF format so as to capture citation and other information, which will be of great value as that object, as that document is consumed by others. So I want to hand over to Frode, partly because I want him to tell you more about what he's been able to do, but also to draw attention to the Association for Computing Machinery and its ability to make use of some of these new technologies. So Frode, over to you.
Thank you, Vint. And just to embarrass you, what time is it where you are?
It's 6:32 in the morning.
Yeah, thank you immensely to be here. So I will try to explain what we're introducing today, but one thing I cannot explain is how excited I am to be with you today, everyone, and to present this. It's unbelievably exciting. So let's not waste more time on that. First, I need to hide you guys in the corner so I can read my own screen. Right. So what we're presenting today is what we call visual meta. The problem addressed is that academic PDFs lack access to digital affordances beyond the web link. And our aim is to give academic PDFs metadata to enable rich interactions, views, and robust citing. Our approach is to add a few words to an appendix. You all know most books, one of the first pages, it has all kinds of stuff about the book. And you also know PDFs normally have nothing. So basically, the core idea is to take that kind of information and, like we've done with all the conference papers for this conference, which is so absurdly exciting, is at the very end of the document, at the end of the paper, there is now visual meta. That is just an amazingly big thing. So what is visual meta actually? Well, it's inspired by BibTeX. So for those of you who know BibTeX, it will look strangely familiar, slightly odd. It starts with visual meta start and it ends with visual meta end. This is supposed to be very human readable. This is not programming code. Inside that, we have wrappers. We have a header that says what version of visual meta it is. And today we have version 1.1. 1.0 is what we've been doing all the testing in the last few months, an incredible team that you will be introduced to at the end. We have managed to put a .1 at the end of it. So this bit is just the actual BibTeX that you would find on the download page of an academic document. 100% normal. There is also introductory text, because the idea is that yes, PDFs are not fantastic in many ways, but the displayed surface on PDFs is very, very robust. We expect them to be around for hundreds of years, and Vint and I may not be around to tell people how to get value out of it. So we write it in normal human language in the introduction. So this is what we have for the ACM hypertext, but this is what it is for the full visual meta as it stands today. I'm going to run through all the sections briefly. If you're interested, you may want to watch the video again because it's a bit of a whirlwind. Before the visual meta, we're looking at putting in a document hash. So we have ways of really identifying it's the right document. Then we skip past what we already have, and we have an extensions bit. In the extensions bit, we have what we feel is a solution to naming in BibTeX being ambiguous. In here, we say first name, middle name, last name, Arabic written name, Chinese written name, really doesn't matter what it is. And also contact information, because as you can see, it says what it is. So parsing software can extract what it feels is relevant to the user. After that, there's an opportunity to put in the entire references from the document in the standard format. You can also put in the headings, so the system knows where the headings are in the document, which is very useful for doing things like finding, folding, and so on. Also, this can produce an interactive glossary as well as a static glossary, which can enable, when you're authoring, a more concept-focused style of writing. Endnotes can, of course, be interactive, and this is where anything goes. You can add anything you like to Visual Meta, you just have to say what it is. We're experimenting with putting the entire text of the document into Visual Meta to help with analysis and formatting, because line breaks and so can be really iffy in normal PDF. And then after the Visual Meta, in a new page, we're looking at how to do an errata. It would essentially be the same as in the olden days of putting in a piece of paper saying where the changes are, so that it is still richly connected to the document. Current implementations, we have a really, really cool timeline. I'm sure you've all seen citation timelines. What is unique with what Adam and Mark has made here is the fact that any Visual Meta enabled PDF can just slot into this. We've also enabled such things as from a PDF, you can copy text, paste it in a word processor as a citation, because the copy clipboard includes the selected text and the BibTeX part of the Visual Meta. This is shipping in our software Author, which is, of course, the writing part, and Reader, which is the reading part. Many other features that are Visual Meta related, including folding, finding, interactive glossary, and concept mapping. Author costs a little bit of money to unlock, but of course, any of you guys send me a message, I'll give you a free code. We really want the community to use this, but at the same time, we have to fund a little bit of the R&D. Benefits, a little bit of a list here. Advanced interactions while reading. There's many things happening to writing software. It should also be available when reading. Augmented citing we looked at. Citing today is absolutely horrible. We have copy and paste. But as you all know from being part of this conference, when you come to do the reference at the end, there can be mistakes, there can be all kinds of issues. If you can do a copy and paste citation, it's much more robust. It enables computational text to use Vint's language. For instance, you can have an equation, maths, in the document. Because the Visual Meta refers to where it is, it can allow the reader software to make it interactive. It could also, as well as surfacing to the reader software, it can surface to servers, including things like if there is a graph inside, it can say what the XY axis actually means, and so on. It is legacy safe, free, open, and easy to implement. In our book, The Future of Text, I wrote it by hand. In our software, of course, it does it automatically, and we have parsers that we're building that will give away to anybody who wants to put it in their software. Finally, it's robust, and this is maybe the most important part. Because it's not hidden in some kind of a package inside a piece of software, it can even be printed, scanned, OCR'd, and no metadata is lost. So you can store things for whatever period of time. In closing, this is part of the Future of Text initiative, which is also the Future of Text book and symposium. If you're interested in that, get in touch or search Future of Text. Unfortunately, you'll find us, which is a bit scary, and that's basically all. Vint will also be featuring this in his October issue of ACM Communications, and we are, of course, talking to other conferences and journals about how to implement this. You are the pilot, you are the first. This is just amazing. We've been doing it in many scattered ways, but to have it in this prestigious organization is wonderful. But please, think about what you can do with this. A lot of you are technical in different ways. This is entirely parsable. You can do magic stuff with this. We have only done the beginning. And very finally, I'd like to thank the team, all of whom are mentioned here, including my people at the University of Southampton and everybody from being here today. And if you want to chat online, at Liquidizer at Twitter, and you can find out anything like Mark Anderson put in the chat at visual-meta.info. Thank you very much. And I think Owen said we have time for a couple of questions.
We do, Frode, Vint, thank you very much. So folks, do you have any questions? Just remembering that this session is being recorded. So please use the raise hand function, or if anybody wants to jump in with a question.
Well, since I'm not hearing any questions, it's Vint Cerf. I'll ask one. Actually, Frode, I was thinking about the first name, last name construct and thinking about the fact that that's very Western. I wonder whether we should have family name and given name as an alternative way of characterizing, so that we don't impose a Western view necessarily on the authors.
Yes, for the next conference, I think we should do that. And also, I hope it will be more non-Western, so we'll have different characters as well. But we should absolutely consider the naming of the titles as well. Yes.
Good point.
And also, not to confuse people, but we're looking at a lot of ways to go with this. We have a meeting, group of us, every Monday and Friday. And yesterday, what we discussed is how we can have video with this. So if we have a transcript, let's say, of a conference like this, how that could go into PDF, but because of the visual meta, it can actually refer to having the video or refer to bits play in line and connect to each other. So the PDF becomes an EDL, basically a playlist. And there are many things. Basically, if you say what the data is, you can do things with it, right? And I'll waffle on a little bit until hopefully someone will cut me off. Alco.
Yeah, so I guess this is a great initiative, and I'm happy also to see that it's not going to be just a one-time effort. And I think the ACM and the Sheridan Publisher really helps you in setting up a process for getting this done also for other conferences. So what will be your future steps in order to get this into the world and that people actually are going to make use of this?
Vint, I think the answer to that from both of us is to use our network to show that this pilot exists. We have, Vint, of course, is hugely connected. Not only did he make the connected internet, but he himself is the most connected person I've ever met. So we are in talk with a lot of different organizations. And it's, we've been talking to them gently, but now it exists with you guys. It's much easier to say, go to this site, download it, and play with it. So I promise you, this is not something that we're casual about. I know, obviously, at least half of you are fans of Hamilton, the musical. And in there, he says, when he has a problem, he can write, I can write my way out of this. This is the 31st of August. A major war just ended today in the most horrible way. We're dealing with climate change. So many things. Text will be a part of the way we communicate. But if we only work with dumb text, so to speak, we are hamstrung. And this is one way to make the text have some context and rich interactivity. If someone does something better, that would be great. We will support that. But at least it's a kick in the right direction, I think. Mr. Anderson.
I just really was going to point out, because I'm sort of surprised that no one has said, why BibTeX? And just to reinforce the words from your talk, that it's really the best of the bad choices at the moment. It needed to be something that's human readable, and you're pretty much stuck with BibTeX or RAS. But the way to think about BibTeX is not so much as it being the absolute core. It's basically the life raft that gets our data construct to the point where enough people say, up with this, we will not put, we'll deliberately design something better for the long term. And I think that's the way to see it. There are many things not to like about BibTeX, and it sort of doesn't even really know the web exists. But it's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And the thing I wanted to waffle is actually quite important. That is, I'm a gamer, Battlefield, I love it. I read an interview with the creators of Crisis, one of those wide open worlds many years ago. Ironically, I can't find the article to cite it, where the developer says, AI isn't that hard. What is hard is to make sure that everything in the environment knows what it is. A piece of wood knows if it can burn, how much weight before it breaks, all of that stuff. That's why you can run around and have fun as a child in a computer game. but our documents do not know what they are. We've all downloaded academic documents, and we can't even find the date that was published, right? So this is an attempt so that the documents can be active agents of their own knowledge in a rich interactive environment. The dream is not that different from what we've been talking about for decades and decades. But the benefit we have is I am just a small independent developer and a PhD student. I don't have bosses to prove anything to. And people like Mark, who's here today, we can afford to do it in a little way. You know, when we try to explain to other people what we're devoting our life to, and we're saying it's writing a few lines of text at the end of a document, it's ridiculous. It's so unimpressive. But it is maybe the simplest thing we can get over the next hurdle, like Mark was saying. Please, one more question from someone who knows nothing about this. Sorry. Otherwise, I'm going to ask Dave Miller to say something because he's my supervisor, one of three. And Dave, without your scaffolding and support, this wouldn't have gotten anywhere near realization. But there he is. The kids must be in school because his video is working.
Yes, you're right. They're not streaming Netflix for once. Yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to echo what you said, really, that really this is about trying to create the next generation of self-aware documents. And it's about incremental change. And it's saying, you know, we have an entire ecosystem in academic publishing built around PDFs. You know, and we've got to the point of having things like the ACM digital library, but the PDFs that you get are dumb documents. They don't know what they are. You can't do anything with them. So with this little bit of augmentation, you start to get an awful lot of power. And let's see where it leads to. So you know, every paper in this conference will have visual meta attached to it within the digital library. And we're hoping that in future we will be able to expand that to other events in the ACM and get the word out. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you all very much, Frode, Vint, Dave, for your words there. I think Visual Meta is a very, very exciting initiative, and it's one which I wish all the very best. And I think it connects very interestingly to what will be our first keynote, which will happen in just over 10 minutes, which talks about what happens when documents get destroyed. How do you try to reconstitute them, discover where they might be, bring them back together into their previous cohesive collection to make sense of them? And I think, you know, in a way, the physical documents can be brittle. We've seen just how brittle digital documents, particularly their connectedness to each other, can be. And hypertext is about that connection, the hyper part of it. So I really hope Visual Meta is a success. I believe with your support it will be. So I'd like to thank you very much for that. Thank you, Ilko, for introducing the program. We're going to wrap up this session now. Folks, you can stay on Zoom because this is where the keynote will happen. But we have about a 10-minute break, so go get a coffee or whatever beverage happens to be suitable for your time zone. And we will see you back here in about 10 minutes. Vint, Frode, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all soon.